Have you ever thought about moving out of your home, turning it into an investment property and renting it out? A lot of Australians assume it's a simple switch. You move out, get a tenant in, collect rent, and you're good to go. But that's not always how it plays out. Because the moment your owner-occupied property becomes an investment property, a lot can change very quickly. Your cash flow changes, your loan setup can change, and your tax position changes. And if you're not careful, your future capital gains tax position can change too. So before you make the move, there are a few really important things you'll want to get right. In this video, we're going to walk through what actually happens when you convert your home into an investment property, where people often get caught out, and what you should check first so you can make a smarter financial decision. This situation is more common than a lot of people realize. Maybe you're upgrading to a bigger home, maybe you're relocating for work, or maybe you're moving in with a partner, or maybe simply do not wish to sell a property you think could perform well over the long term. On the surface, it sounds like a great strategy. You keep the asset, you may benefit from future growth, and you start bringing in rental income. That's exactly why so many people consider it. But here's what we see all the time. People focus on the rent and the long-term upside, but they do not always stop to look at the full picture itself. The real question to ask is, does this still make sense once I factor in the finance, tax, cash flow, and future sale implications? Let's start with cash flow, because this is one of the biggest reality checks. A lot of owners look at the estimated weekly rents and think, perfect, that should cover most of it. But owning an investment property is never just about the rent coming in. It's also about everything going out. You still need to think about mortgage repayments, interest rates, insurance, maintenance, property management fees, and potential periods where the property is vacant and no rent is coming in at all. If you're also moving into another home, whether it's as a renter or a buyer, you may now be carrying two sets of housing costs at once. The numbers can look very different in real life compared to how they looked in your head. That's why this decision needs to be based on the real numbers. One of the biggest mistakes we see is people asking, what rent can I get? Before asking, what will this actually cost me to hold? Because rental income is only one part of the story. What really matters is what's left after the expenses. So before you make the switch, ask yourself this. Can I comfortably afford this if repairs come up? Can I handle a vacancy period? And does this still work if costs shift? If the answer is yes, you're starting from a much stronger position. Next, let's talk about loan side, because this is another area people often underestimate. A lot of people assume the loan just stays exactly the same because the property itself has not changed. But from a lender's point of view, the use of the property has changed, and that can matter. Once your home stops being owner-occupied and starts being used to generate rental income, your lender may treat that property differently. Depending on your lender and your setup, you may need to notify them that the property is no longer your principal place of residence. And that matters because owner-occupied loans and investment loans are not always treated the same. In some cases, investment loan rates may be higher. In others, you may need to review whether your current structure still suits what you're trying to do next. For example, if you're planning to keep your first property and buy another home, your borrowing power, your repayments, and your overall lending strategy may all need to be reassessed. This is one of those points where people realize this is not just a property decision, it's a finance decision too. The same property can create a very different lending outcome once its purpose changes. So before making the switch, it's worth speaking to your lender or broker to understand what changes, what stays the same, and whether your setup still works for your broader plan. Now, let's get to the tax side, because this is where a lot of people start to see the upside. Once your property becomes an investment property, the rental income it earns generally needs to be declared. But this is also where deduction opportunities can start to open up. Depending on your circumstances, you may be able to claim things like interest on your loan, property management fees, certain repairs and maintenance costs, insurance, and other holding expenses connected to the property. This is where smarter planning can make a real difference. One of the most common things we see is people focusing only on the rent coming in, without properly understanding the deductions that may be available against that income. That's a huge missed opportunity. Then there's depreciation, which is one of the most commonly overlooked entitlements to property investors. Property depreciation is essentially the wear and tear of the building and eligible assets over time. And in many cases, it can create valuable deductions without requiring extra out-of-pocket spending in that same year. That means two properties owning similar rental income can produce very different after-tax outcomes. One owner may just be collecting rent and claiming a few basic expenses. Another owner may have had a proper tax depreciation schedule in place and a much clearer view of how to improve the property's after-tax performance. That's why this is not just about whether the property earns income, it's about how effectively it performs after tax. And from a strategy perspective, it's a very important difference. Now, here's a part that catches a lot of people off guard and is a major trap people often don't think about early enough: capital gains tax. When a property is your main residence, it may be eligible for a capital gains tax exemption. This means even if you were to sell for a large profit, there is no tax applicable. But once that property starts producing rental income, things are very different. Your property will lose the exemption from the date the property is officially an investment. This is where people can get caught out if they assume that renting out a former home has no impact later on. While converting your home into an investment property may create income and deduction opportunities now, it can also affect the tax position of that property when it eventually is sold. You also need to think about the long-term outcome. For some owners, there may still be rules for exemptions that apply depending on their circumstances and timing. But the big takeaway here is simple: do not make assumptions. Because what looks like a smart move today can create an unexpected tax issue later if the structure and timing are not considered properly from the start. So when you're thinking about this switch, ask yourself, what could this mean when I eventually sell? That is a critical question, and it's one of the biggest reasons getting professional advice early can be so valuable. If you're thinking about converting your owner-occupied property into an investment property, here's a simple takeaway. Before you make the move, check 3 things. First, check the cash flow properly. Do not rely on the rental estimate alone. Look at the full picture that includes your expenses, such as loan repayments, council rates, insurance, maintenance, management costs, and the possibility of vacancy. Second, check the finance side. Speak with your lender or broker to understand whether your current loan setup still works once the property becomes an investment property, and whether that shift affects your future borrowing plans. Third, check the tax side early. Understanding what income needs to be declared, what deductions may be available, whether depreciation could improve the property's after-tax performance, and what the long-term capital gains tax implications could be. Because when the move is planned properly, it can absolutely be a smart strategy. When people rush in without understanding the full picture, that's when costly mistakes happen. So if you're considering making that switch and you want to understand the numbers properly, speak with the team at DuoTax. We can help you understand the tax considerations, the deductions opportunities, and the depreciation side of the property, so you can make a more informed decision from the start. And if you want more practical insights like this around property tax, depreciation, and smarter investing strategies, make sure you subscribe and check out our other content as well.